everyone. My name is Tammy Leslie, certified life coach, and this is my channel Inch by Inch. Welcome. On this channel, we talk about what it's like to rebuild after life's hardest seasons. If you are new to my channel, welcome. I hope you find something you can use here. And if you are returning, I want to say thank you. I truly appreciate you. You know, this YouTube thing is harder than I thought it was going to be. Recently, I was reviewing my videos, and I realized that I've been so sporadic about posting that they feel really random with no storyline or continuity. So I thought we'd start from the beginning to provide some context and clarity. And today, I'd like to share my story and talk about why Inch by Inch is important to me. So go grab something to drink and let's have a chat. So, why is Inch by Inch important to me? Well, after my second bout with cancer, I realized that tomorrow is not promised. And if I wanted to build something new in my life, I had to do it now. I thought that by documenting my journey, it would provide me with accountability and it might also encourage you to start your own journey to change. And I want to show you that rebuilding after life's toughest setbacks is completely doable. Inch by Inch was actually a long time in the making. The place my life is in today is actually only the latest version of several rebuilds over the years, and it actually started long before I had cancer. And I have to say that this current version is so much better than where my first rebuild began back in 2021 when I got divorced. This rebuild found me with a few basic computer skills and not much else to offer. I did already have a job, but it had been just something to add a little extra income to our budget. It wasn't going to pay the rent though. So I got a second job as a server in a restaurant. I got a teeny tiny studio apartment, and I took my first steps towards my independence. So who was I back then? Well, as you can guess, the divorce was emotionally devastating for sure. My self-esteem plummeted, and I realized how complacent I had become and how much of myself I had packed away during my marriage, trying to be what I believed an ideal wife should be. I believed that the bold, outspoken girl that joined the Navy at 18 years old and who loved motorcycles would not be a good wife. I thought a June Cleaver persona would be a better fit. But you know what? That comes from a childhood belief that I really wasn't acceptable to be my true self. Now, this rebuild took time. I bounced around from job to job, either because I was laid off or I actually found something better. However, I struggled with who I was and who I wanted to be. This new me was someone I didn't respect. She was a cookie cutter version of everyone else. But I still believed, unfortunately, that stepping out to be my true self was risky. Because I thought I was bound to get into trouble, or worse, I was going to get fired. I kept telling myself, Tammy, just keep your head down and blend in. But I was never quite able to do that because I was trying to fit into spaces that didn't fit me. Have you ever been there? During this time, I also did a lot of soul searching. I prayed for guidance. I prayed for my life purpose. And after what I felt was like eternity, I finally got an answer. My purpose was to be a life coach. Ta-da! Now, to be honest, I had no idea what a life coach was. And I'll tell you that whole story in another video. I thought at the time it was a type of counselor, and I knew that counseling took a master's degree to get into. But quite frankly, guys, I was just tired. I was already closer to 40 than 30, and I had neither the time nor the money to start college. However, God, fate, or the universe stepped in late in 2010, and I was working the worst job I'd ever had. And I really wanted to quit, but I didn't believe in myself enough at the time to send out a resume. Thankfully, though, my path was opened up when I was chatting with a new coworker, and I casually asked, "What do you do in your spare time?" And she said, "I'm studying to be a life coach." Well, ding, 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 ding. Tammy, here's your sign. The most surprising part of the conversation was when she told me that this was a certification program offered through an accredited school. Say what? I couldn't believe it. I got the name of the school and literally started my enrollment process that same day. Now, you'd think that this would be the start of rebuild number two. Nope. Wouldn't you know that the moment I got the financing arranged to start my coach training, I lost the terrible job due to corporate downsizing. To be honest, I didn't know where to cheer or cry. It was a terrible job, but like I said, it paid the bills. After that, I did finish my coach training, and I was still another 3 years making do with a part time job. Why didn't I just go get a better job or start my coaching practice? I did try. I got several coaching clients and wrote several workshops. All proved to be successful for my clients. However, I was just depressed back then and living in a lack mentality. No matter what I tried, I couldn't pull myself out of it. And eventually it got so bad, I had to leave my apartment and get rid of almost everything I owned. At the age of 48 years old, I moved back into my parents' home. Guys, I have never been more humiliated in my life. I was at rock bottom. I had no choice but to rebuild again. At that point, I needed a job, I needed a place to live, and I had a 15-year-old car that was on its last leg. I would call this phase of my life a big, fat, face planting fail. But you know what? Rebuild number two did happen. I worked long shifts at a restaurant to be able to afford a newer used car and the money needed for a tiny apartment. Now, the first move out attempt failed and I was back home again. So I doubled down and I got a better job. And I finally saved up for another apartment and I moved into my own home with a folding card table and a blow up mattress. There were many trials and setbacks and missteps during this time, but somehow I got through. But you know what? When I moved into that apartment, you would have thought that somebody had just given me the keys to a castle. My life was finally where I wanted it to be. And things were really good for quite some time. I got promoted at my job and I was making good money. And I actually was able to buy furniture for my apartment. And then in 2019, just when I thought I'd be safe to start my dream, I was diagnosed with stage 3 uterine cancer. Well, talk about taking the wind out of your sails. That took a complete hysterectomy and 9 months of treatment. Rebuild number 3 was thankfully mostly just overcoming the physical side effects of chemo and radiation. I still had my job and everything in my life was intact. I kind of had to call that a win, wouldn't you think? I was in remission for 2 years. Things were so awesome in that time frame. And then a call from my doctor came with the news that my cancer had returned and had now shown up in my lungs. This was dangerous as it could easily spread from there. Stage 4 cancer. That is not what you want to hear. I felt like I was out of luck and out of time. My doctor said we would fight, but the odds were that I wouldn't make it out on the other side. Well, wouldn't you know, 13 months of treatment later, and I was declared cancer free. And that was over a year ago, and I'm still going strong. Guys, if I am honest, my life is in a really good place. I have many, many blessings. But you know what? It's not the life that will make me happy. As I said earlier, tomorrow is not promised. And if I don't do something now, then when? Yet there's this pull to stay where I am. It's safe, it's warm, and I have many of the things I want. And a part of me says, isn't this good enough? Really, Tammy, isn't it good enough? Well, no, it's not good enough. It's time for rebuild number 4. And how do I feel about this new stage of my life? I am so excited. This is one rebuild I am looking forward to. But on the other side, I am scared out of my freaking mind. It's going to be a lot of work. But I've decided, succeed or fail, I've promised to show up every day and give my best. I may fall flat on my face every day, but I'm committed to the effort, not the outcome. And I hope you will join me on that journey. Well, now you know the rest of the story. Again, I invite you to join me as I document my journey one tiny success at a time. I hope that you might also take those first small steps to change in your own life. Maybe we can support each other as we progress on our journeys. If you've ever faced a life rebuild after something really hard, could you give me a thumbs up to show your support? Also, if you are curious to know what this life will look like, then hit subscribe and you can be notified when I post the next video. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye, everybody.